Hello, my name is Agapidendaki, and we are going to do an English lesson called The Wheelchair Part 2, which is based on a script by Luke Prodromou. Last time we did Part 1, and we met my two friends. You met Luke and David. And you remember that David is a plenary speaker, and Luke is a conference organizer. So they are both today at a conference that Luke is organizing, and David is going to speak. He's going to give the main plenary talk, and they are meeting for the first time. You watched a video of their meeting, so now let's summarize what happened during that meeting. We're going to use the words teacher, wrong, difficult, voice, uses, important, speaks, and wheelchair. So let's see what happened during that meeting. Luke is a conference organizer. He's waiting for a very important professor. He meets David, a wheelchair user. He doesn't always speak to David directly. He speaks to David's friend about David. David is an English teacher. When Luke speaks to David, he raises his voice. Luke thinks that David's life is hard. He thinks that teaching is difficult for a wheelchair user. Luke wants to help David, but he does and says the wrong things. In the end, Luke finds out that David is the important professor. He also finds out that David can walk, but sometimes he uses a wheelchair. Okay, so David is a wheelchair user, and Luke is disrespectful to him. He does not behave to him with respect. He doesn't know how to behave to people with disabilities. So, how do we show respect to people with disabilities? We may not know. We don't know what to do and how to speak when we meet people with disabilities. We make mistakes, like Luke. But never mind, because we learn from our mistakes. That's how we learn. We make mistakes and then we learn. So now we are going to examine Luke's mistakes, and in this way we are going to find out what we must do and what we must say when we meet people with disabilities. Okay, we're going to watch some clips from their meeting, and you have to be very attentive, pay close attention, and note the mistakes that Luke makes. And then we are going to collect some tips of how to behave. Let's watch the first video.
It's hot today. Oh, dear.
Excuse me, do you mind?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Thank you.
Hot.
Hi, I'm David, and this is...
Hi, pleased to meet you.
Yes, pleased to meet you.
Luke Medler, conference organizer. Just waiting for our plenary speaker. Very important professor, you know.
Well, actually...
yes, it must be very difficult for him.
Yes, things could be better.
It must be a hard life. I've got a cousin who's handicapped, so I know what it's like. He needs a lot of attention. Can't do a thing on his own. Pity. It's incredibly hard on the family. What does he do?
I teach.
Oh, a teacher, eh? Well, that must be very hard. Eh?
No, not really.
Well, really good for you.
Okay, so here Luke makes some very serious mistakes, and we can get some tips from his behavior. First of all, we say hello to people with special needs exactly the same way we say hello to other people. When Luke meets David, he doesn't say hello to him. He says hello to David's friend, and he says, pleased to meet you, to David's friends, but not to David. Okay? The thing is that we must say hello and greet people with special needs in the same way. Also, he touches his wheelchair and he touches David in appropriate ways without asking. Actually, he's trying to hang his coat on David's wheelchair. So the tip is that you must ask before you touch the wheelchair user or the wheelchair. And when we want to say something to the person with special needs, we say it directly to them. We don't speak to another person instead of the person with special needs. Now, let's watch another clip from their meeting.
What does he teach?
I teach English.
English, eh? Oh, that is very interesting. Well, it wouldn't be gymnastics, would it?
As a matter of fact, there are a lot of gym teachers with disabilities nowadays, you know.
Oh, yes, of course, yes. Sorry,
David.
Yes, David, do you have an assistant?
An assistant?
To help?
To help?
The lessons.
To help with the lessons?
No, to help with the lessons.
No, I teach alone. I can manage.
Oh, you do it on your own, do you? Ooh, tough. Pity. I mean, don't the kids misbehave?
No more than usual.
I mean,
you just need to motivate them, as always.
I mean, they don't, you know, pull your leg, to coin a phrase. Was it an accident?
An accident?
The wheelchair.
No, I chose it.
Ah.
Did you notice that Luke said that David could never be a gym teacher? He thought he was saying something funny. It was a joke, but we mustn't make jokes like that about people with special needs. Also, he asked him some personal questions, and he commented on how he could treat children or his classroom. We must not make comments on people with special needs, and we must not ask awkward questions, personal questions. Also, he showed pity for him. He thought that it was poor David who couldn't handle children in his classroom. No, that's not right. So the tips that we get from Luke's behavior this time are that we must be careful with the jokes that we make about people with special needs, that we must think before we ask questions or make comments, and that we must not show pity. Remember, people with special needs do not need our pity. They need respect like everybody else.
Started, actually. We are running late. I mean, we are late. It's time we you know, go. Shall I take your bag for you?
No, thank you.
Are you sure?
I'd rather hang on to it if you don't mind. It's got the notes for my talk in it.
Okay. I'll take the wheelchair for you, shall I? I'll just take
thank you. It's not necessary. No, please.
All right, okay.
Okay, you must have noticed that Luke is trying to say that they are late, and he says, we are running late, and he's trying to take that back. He doesn't want David to hear the word run. He thinks that David will not feel good if he hears the word run or the word walk, for instance. But no, there is no such problem with people with special needs. And after that, he's trying to offer help to David without being asked to. He wants to carry his bag or push his wheelchair, and David does not need this kind of help. So the tips we get from this video is that with people with special needs, it's okay to use words like walk or run. They may not be able to walk or run themselves, but they can hear words like that. And that we must think before we offer help. And the final clip.
Cambridge University professor. Right. Yes, you're David Johnson. You're our plenary speaker. You're going to give the first plenary. Well, well, well. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Shall I take your bag for you?
No, thank you.
Give me a hand.
All right.
Let me give you a hand.
No, you don't need to.
I'll take your bag.
No, I can manage.
Okay. I'll just take the wheelchair. It's my pleasure. Please allow me.
It's all
my
right.
pleasure. Sorry. I thought you couldn't walk.
Look, let me explain. I've recently developed a condition which prevents me from standing upright for long periods and from walking without great difficulty, so I'm now very often a wheelchair user, but not all the time. There are different kinds of disability.
So what are Luke's mistakes here? First of all, when he realizes that David is the plenary speaker, he offers to shake hands with him, and then he draws his hand back. He doesn't feel good shaking hands with a person with special needs. And second, he is sure that David cannot walk because he's sitting in a wheelchair. And surprise, David stands up and he starts walking. So the tips we get from this behavior is that we can shake hands with a disabled person exactly the same way as we shake hands with other people. And we must never be sure that we know what a person with special needs can do or cannot do. So now you have collected some tips. You have a list of tips that you can teach Luke how to behave with them. You've become a wise little person, and you can give advice to Luke. So if you see Luke or anybody else misbehaving, disrespecting people with special needs, what would you say to them? Teach them how to show respect. So you see that Luke touches David on the shoulder. And you know what happens? Because we people are standing up and people in wheelchairs are lower, we think that they are like kids and we start touching them and tapping on their back. But that's disrespectful. So when Luke touches David's shoulder, you could tell Luke, if I were you, I wouldn't think. What would you say to him? For example, if I were you, I wouldn't touch a disabled person without asking. Now, Luke says that wheelchair users cannot be gym teachers. And he thinks that it's a joke, that he is being funny. So you tell him, you mustn't what? You mustn't make jokes about people's disabilities. Luke tries to push David's wheelchair for him without asking, okay? So you tell Luke, You should ask before you try to help a disabled person. Luke also avoids shaking hands with David. He does not want to do that. He feels embarrassed. So you can assure Luke, you can tell Luke that it's okay to do what? It's okay to shake hands with a disabled person exactly like you do with other people. Luke also says to David that David's life is hard, so he's showing pity for him. And you tell Luke it's not right to feel pity for disabled people. So now you have collected a list of tips. You can teach Luke, you can teach him manners, you can teach him how to respect, and he's grateful to you, and so is David. Both of them are grateful to you. So David, Luke, and I thank you very much because you've done a great job. Thank you.